So, as you can see, my thing that I chose to do is the Westboro Baptist Church. Next slide, Nathan. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, so some background info. The founder is Fred Phelps. The Westboro Baptist Church is a branch of the East Side Baptist Church, so it's kind of like down a few blocks from that church, which was the East Side Baptist Church was started before them. They started doing anti-gay protests at the Gage Park down the road from the church. That's like, I think it's like 2 blocks away, 3 blocks away. They said it was a den for homosexual activities. The protests spread throughout the city, and in 3 years they started to travel across the country, and I found out they spent about $200,000 on traveling across the country to go protest at certain events and stuff. And now they go around spreading God's hate. I'll explain that a little bit at the end and everything. So, Fred Phelps, he is the founder and the creator of this church. He stated that he is an old school Baptist, so he believes in old school rules and not anything new or anything like that. He's held to all the 5 points of Calvinism. I don't really know what that is, but it's some kind of like I don't know, guideline things that they follow. He's big into John Calvin's doctrine of unconditional election, and it is the belief that God has elected certain people for the salvation before birth. He turned anti-gay because supposedly he witnessed one of his grandsons being pulled into some bushes by some people who were homosexuals, I guess. They're trying to lure him into the bushes or something. And he is now dead, and he died 2 years ago now. Shirley Phelps, so she is still alive and everything. She's the one who she basically runs the church now. She's an American lawyer and a political activist, so she's pretty smart. All these people are pretty smart. She worked for their family's law organization that her father, Fred, started. The company's called Phillips Charter Co. It's kind of like a law firm, something like that. She's spoken the most for the church, so she's the one who speaks out the most against for being like at their anti-gay protests and everything like that. She was arrested for allegedly letting her son stomped on an American flag at a soldier's funeral while they were protesting. So that's one thing that they do is they go to soldiers' funerals, and I talk about that later. Shirley practices law at the Phillips Charter Co., which was started by her father. So why they protest? It all started when Fred witnessed his grandson being kidnapped. By protesting, they want to make what's inside people's hearts, I guess, come out of their mouths. So what they're trying to say is that people already know that people shouldn't be gay or something inside, but they're afraid to say it. So they're just trying to get people to acknowledge what they actually feel. It doesn't really make much sense. They believe God wouldn't support same-sex activities, so they shouldn't either. The church dislikes more than just homosexuals. They dislike religions. People who aren't even gay, like people who don't even have anything to, aren't even gay themselves, and then soldiers. So, religions, they believe that, other religions that promote homosexual activities are just basically not acceptable, and then so they go and hate on them. And people who aren't even gay, they hate anybody who supports gay marriage and everything like that. And then soldiers, they go to their funerals to try to prove a point, and then I talk about funerals and stuff in the next slide, I think. So yeah, they hate everything that supports gay activities. So, funeral pickets. The first picket was at Matthew Shepard's funeral because of his he was a homosexual who got murdered, I think, by 2 men for being homosexual. So they went to his funeral and picketed it. They picket soldiers' funerals for one reason. They believe that God wants them dead because the U.S. is accepting gay people. So they feel that God is making our soldiers die because he's trying to punish us for accepting how people just want to live and how they want to be. The Boston bombings, they protested at those killed funerals to show that God is doing this because he is trying to punish us. So it's all just about punishment for accepting gay rights and everything like that, and just accepting people in general. The 2013 Moore tornado, the church praised God for sending that tornado, and they said they would picket the funerals of the people who were lost in that funeral. So They just, basically anything negative that happens to the U.S., they feel that it's God trying to do that to punish us for accepting gays and just letting people live the life they want to live. So, views on racism, I just put this in here because it's like the only good thing that the church basically believes in. The founder of the church, Fred Phelps, he was a veteran of the civil rights movement, so back when all the blacks and everything were trying to get equal rights and everything. He was one of the people who was for that. They have a strong hate towards racism along with any physical violence, so that's why the Westboro Baptist Church dislikes the Nazis, KKK, people, anybody who uses violence against other people to prove a point because they don't use violence. And the church doesn't believe in violence or racism. Okay, so the funeral, there was a funeral law passed. There was like a law passed. It's called the Honoring America's Veterans and Caring for Camp Lejeune Families Act of 2012. They can't pick it. It like basically put in a little bit of kind of laws for funerals and stuff like that. They can't pick it 2 hours before or after a funeral, and they have to be at least 300 feet away from any family members grieving or anything at the funeral. Others have done their own things to stop from protesting at funerals. In Missouri, they made a human wall around a funeral of a fallen soldier so they couldn't come and picket it, so they let the family have privacy. So, summary. They believe that God hates gays and is punishing us for accepting people for who they are. That's their main reason behind all this. The punishments from them are soldiers dying, severe tornadoes, shootings, so any kind of weather, tornadoes, anything like that. Shootings, that was another one of them. The, what was it called? The Sandy Hook Elementary shooting. They thought that was from God too. He sent that to happen to punish us again. So they want to make others see this through their protests, so that's why they make these signs like God hates America, and I know there's some other signs that said like, there was like signs about soldiers and stuff that they'd hold up at funerals to show that God is punishing the soldiers for what we think is right. They believe anyone who supports gay action is going to hell because God doesn't support it. So that's why they do what they do, because they just want to get points proven that they think how the world should be and everything like that. Any questions? Nathan?
So about how many people are in their church exactly?
I think it's, I don't think it's any more than 50. I think it's mainly, I know it's mainly composed of just their family members, like kids, relatives. They're all just, they kind of live in their own gated community. I know there's like a fence around their community and they all live in like houses all around the church. There's a few people. There's one guy I know who was from somewhere else, and then he came and he wanted to be in the church. So there's a few people, but mostly it's family members. So I don't think there's more than 50. I think there's like 30.
So this
what? Oh.
This basically like takes up their whole life.
Yeah, that's
like
that's all they believe in. That's all they do. Like Shirley, when she's not protesting or anything, she's working at their family law company. They don't really do anything. Yeah, they're all about this church. Tori?
How young is the youngest member?
Oh, they have like, because I watched a documentary and stuff, and they have like, I think there's like 5-year-olds and stuff that are protesting at the pickets and everything. And in the video, the like journalist who went and lived with them for like a week or so, he asked the kids if they knew what they were protesting for, and they didn't even know what they were. They were just there because their parents told them they were there, so they didn't even. They're just basically using their kids for more people to protest and hold signs because the kids don't even know what's going on. Any other questions? All right.
You talking about leaving the church?
No. I mean, I know there's family members who left the church. There's family members who don't even want to be a part of anything or even know about these people because they think it's wrong. And then I know there's people who've been kicked out and then they're not let back in. But I didn't really talk about that. I probably should have, but I didn't.
Well, that's okay. Can I answer it?
Yeah.
So when family members and people do leave, they leave their families, they leave this church, and so in essence they leave their families. The family members that stay in the church, you guys, they completely cut them off. Sky's my daughter, I'm in the church, never would be. I'm in the church, she wants to leave, so she leaves. I basically, what they do is, she's dead to me. There's never a reconnection. It's not like that thing where like 20 years down the road when someone's on their deathbed. She's dead to me. That was part of it. I think one of the documentaries I watched was that they just actually cut you off from the family. You no longer exist because the church is so powerful to them that their family members don't matter.
Well, yeah, that's another thing too, like the daughters and stuff in the documentary. They talked about the daughters and everything, and like they asked the daughters if they have any real friends outside of like this church, and the daughters feel that everybody at school or whoever is kind of their friend are just acquaintances, and they don't think they're their actual true friends because they think the only way to have a true friend for them is someone who's in this church and believes in what they believe in. And then they talked about like boyfriends and stuff like that, and they don't think they'll ever have a boyfriend or nothing like that. They don't want anything to do with that. This church consumes them and who they talk to and everything like that too. So it's basically just a big consumer of their lives and stuff like that. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
How was it?